Hi, welcome to the Fatherly Edition, a podcast by Tommaso Maggio alongside with a cavalcade of Daddy. Join us! Welcome back. Today we are at the Fatherly Edition with Tommaso Maggio, and we have a special guest, Professor Mike Phillips. He's a Professor of Interdisciplinary Arts, a School of Art, Design and Architecture at Plymouth University. So thank you, Mike, for accepting the invitation, and thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure, Tommaso. Looking forward to it.
Thanks. Before we start, it would be nice if you can just give an introduction of who is Mike today. I say you are a professor, but how you change, how different is the Mike of today and Mike of a few years ago, let's say, before you had kids? Summarize, in general, a couple of things have been changed.
Yeah, I think my hair's fallen out and my knees have gone, and I blame them directly for that. I think definitely. I don't know. It's weird. I've got a second sort of generation of it now. I've got a grandson now, so that's quite inspiring in itself. And I think I get to have another go at it, but without all of the intensity of having to deal with it all the time. Maybe, yeah. So I guess it's been a while they're old now. They're like 33 and 35 or something like that. So definitely trying to remember what it was like before they turned up is really difficult because they seem to be here for forever. So I guess have I changed? I don't know. It's very difficult when you're in a state of constant change to notice that things have changed.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there is something they say, before that, so you will never do it, or maybe because, of course, you have this, let's say, long-term experience, so maybe you are proactive in doing something that you never think even before.
Wisdom, I think, is one of those. There's a bit of an illusion. I think it's just the brain not working quite as efficiently as it used to. So you definitely feel more wise, but I have no proof or evidence to that fact. Yeah.
Well, at least, I assume since your kids are already grown up and you're second generation already now, how old are your nephew?
He's 2 now. My grandson is 2. So and at a distance as well. It's quite annoying. My eldest son moved to San Francisco and now in LA. So the distance between Plymouth and those far-flung places in California makes Zoom quite useful. Well, it's not Zoom. We use Messenger, but that's really the main contact I have with my grandson and older son now. We've been over a few times, but it's and again, I suppose what's changed is back then I was doing all this sort of telematic work with Roy Ascott and the like back in the 80s, and when we had the kids, that was a kind of promise, and that was something that the vision of a future of a networked cyber lifestyle. Now I'm kind of living it, and I think we all have through lockdowns of one form or another. And I'm not even sure if that was such a good idea. I don't know. I guess we had some early rehearsals.
Well, it seems that what you envisioned early on was somehow on the good or the no. Somehow now it's tangible and evident to everyone. So it's not something that's still on the clouds. So everybody needs to face it.
Well, again, Roy Ascott's book, Is There Love in the Telematic Embrace? Definitely, I think there is. When you're assuming with your grandson, that's a new form of cyber love, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. And now it is a living now, more than just moist. So it's a really at this point is quite a routine, I'd say. So it's interesting, even to see how this vision became tangible.
It is, and I guess it's interesting to think about how he might be thinking about it as well, in terms of 1 minute we're on a camera on a phone somewhere, and then the next minute when we do go and see him, we just arrive in 3D. What impact that's having on his consciousness about the world around him, and that the relationship between. I mean, obviously, I don't think he has any concept of the space between us, geographically.
Right.
But so then turning up, that is quite disorientating. So it must be quite weird for a small child as well. But
I assume so. Or maybe for them, because for them now is the normal. So maybe it's more for us, for the other generation that was thinking that was a possible future, right?
Yeah, our cyberception was underdeveloped, and now it's just it is normal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite shocking still.
It is, yes, I think so. And that stupid little thing that says, "How do you enjoy the Zoom," or whatever, that will appear at the end of this conversation, will be like, "I didn't enjoy it at all, actually."
Wow, and of course, all those things. I have another conversation with another dad. He's saying, we all more or less, not everybody, but working with technology, so in one extension or another. And then at a certain point we complain because now there is all these, for instance, those applications where they say, "Oh, you can download, but it's only for kids." It's available for kids from 4 years old and above. So then what is the limit? So everybody embracing, there is a limit, and then we complain because the new generation spend too much time on it.
Yes, exactly. Well, I think my son, both sons were, that was, Christ, when was that? That was 1988, I guess. The oldest was born, and 90 was the second one. But so in the early 90s, I had, I was on sort of Mac SEs and Mac Pluses and LC2s, I think it was, Apple era, and we had Kid Pics on that. And that was an amazing piece of art, making software for kids. And that was, I used to enjoy playing with that. And I've got some nice photos of them using that stuff at quite a young age. And so I don't really have a problem kids interacting with technology, but it's not so much the technology, it's the obsessive nature of getting locked into it, which that sort of hypnotic thing. But I think being creative with it rather than just consuming it is very positive.
Of course, it's totally different things, and I think your family are lucky because they have you. So, and you play with technology, you're not just consuming it. So somehow you impact that on them in this in this area of life, for sure.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I suppose it is. You are a hostage to fortune if you don't know how to use this stuff.
Right. Right. And yes. So, and how you think your job now, because your job with the university, so I assume give you a bit of freedom and how you can engage time and moving between family and academy. It's just my preconception how somehow works out.
No, I don't actually. Maybe now, if I had kids now, I might be a little bit more relaxed about it. But
now,
I think more. Yeah, back then it was. I guess I was I think I would, one of those sort of blended my home and teaching things. So I bring my work home a lot and bring them in to work a bit as well. So I seem to remember doing that. So, but I don't think I was particularly, I was quite driven, I think, to do stuff. So I've always lived quite close to the university. I've been at this university for the last 30 years, which is ridiculous. And literally within walking distance of it. So that was always quite easy to transition between the two locations and bring a little bit of it in to each. But I probably wasn't as good as I should have been in terms of the management of. I think there was an art college, and then I moved into a computing department, but to do digital art, and that was that was this kind of combination of art not being a hobby but being the thing that I wanted to do, and then to do it digitally, which needed a computing department to do it. So that what you would naturally do as a hobby blended in with work, and I think also stupidly spent probably too much time doing that, which is great because now you've got a grandson and you can compensate.
Exactly. See, and then I think it was just because everything happened because it's your passion. Your job is not something that happened, I assume. So that's why you carry a bit of on one side and another side. That is a good thing. So not many people are lucky enough to bring and share this passion.
I think so, and I guess a lot of there was always about sort of public engagement and often working with kids anyway, younger kids, doing some of the stuff we do, like the immersive vision theatre, which I look after, which is a sort of 30-seater planetarium for doing shows for different age groups and things like that. That feels quite a natural extension of parental role, I think. Certainly it has a sense of wanting to corrupt young minds with the infinity of space, and so I think there is I suppose that was a slight casual relationship between work, even though it was quite driven, that meant it blended a bit, and I'm not entirely sure how positive that was for them, for the kids.
We need to ask them. So.
Yeah, I should ask them. I'm sure they don't really care anymore, but yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, both of you and your wife are art driven. I don't know, because both of you are into art, on one side or another. But I think you bring this to the family, and I think this is for sure has an impact. That is a positive impact, I assume.
I think so. I think both, definitely. I think both kids, I mean, my wife, Sarah, was their art teacher at school as well. She was the head of art at the school they were going to for their secondary year leading up to their A-levels, which is what you take here just before you go to university. And she interfered with their creative potential at that age, much to their annoyance and embarrassment, being
So they cannot escape from from parents, and they can escape from art. So whenever they go,
absolutely, yeah. But I think they have actually been influenced by that. It's always weird. I've known several kids as I grew up, like my age, whose parents were doctors or something like that, and they were seriously messed up just as a rebellion against what their parents are doing. But I think our kids have both they have sort of absorbed some of it and have maybe not a respect for it, but certainly that some of the stuff that I've done they seem to have appreciated and liked. And the older one is now working in the digital, for one of the big evil corporations in a digital context as a designer, which is great. I mean, that feels great for me that he's doing that, and I think I can't take any responsibility for that, but other than that, the influence of doing that kind of stuff, and probably those photographs I mentioned of him doing kid pics on an LC2, he's now living that out with Apple. And the other one is we did do kind of physical things, not digital but physical stuff, and now is seriously into kind of high quality artisan foods and stuff like that. So that is definitely a creative activity, which I think is part of that. So and we've been fortunate not to have any terrible traumas with the kids in terms of that parenting, the parental thing, the rebellion stuff. I mean, one of them was a bit like an alien as he was growing up in that sort of 15-year-old period, but that was okay, really. So yeah, it's been quite, touch wood, quite a smooth. You can never tell, can you, when you're on that road, what's actually happening until you look back at it. But I think looking back at it, it was quite very, very pleasant. And I know others have had less pleasant experiences with relationships and family things. So be grateful for that.
Fantastic. What a story. And I mean, it's not usual, that listen the story of of kids that are being raised by both parents into arts, because they're usual suspect. Who are the usual suspects? And this is a sort of nice story too, because sometimes parents say, "Oh, you are going to study arts. No, you got to be a crazy artist." So, but there are many aspects in it. Art is not just generic. So, especially nowadays, you can blend with technologies. So you can do 30 years ago. Now it's just a normality.
Yeah, and I think that you can see that with actually, neither of them did fine art, which was the sort of media art stuff, but they were in maybe more in design, which I guess was flavor of that kind of media art stuff, that you had to understand the digital materiality of it in order to make it. They seem quite interested in that. So they're not replicating what we're doing, which would be weird, but they have sort of like forked from that, and there's sort of bifurcation into maybe more of a design or more of an artisan way of working as well. That feels very healthy, I think.
Yeah, they forge their own path, probably, as you said.
Yeah.
There are, of course, some influence, of course, from both of you.
A flavor. We might have added a flavor to it.
All right, let's say that. And then they grow up with, I think you bring up for sure the sort of very broad perspective, and that probably is what makes them who they are. Probably.
Maybe. Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
I think
I assume.
Yeah, I get. I would hope so. I mean, that is. It is interesting how, like, I come from an Irish kind of family, and I was the first person to go to university from my family, historic sort of family, with that kind of working class Irish immigrant group living in the UK, and I think, although of course I didn't actually go to university, I went to art school, which was interesting in itself, but definitely took that route, and they followed on from that. But I think with that softer edged, not academic but makerly thing was definitely part of that history and that sort of diversion from so yeah, I think there's a certain openness and a certain I don't know, it's interesting with my son being in California, is that and obviously he works for the digital, for cyber stuff, and he's and they're quite well paid, and so they're living in a slight weird social bubble. I mean, San Francisco is they're moving out of San Francisco now, but San Francisco is a weird bubble of so close to Silicon Valley. The problems that you have with that the complete lack of diversity on the extremes of diversity, I guess you've just got very wealthy tech people and very poor people who sort of service the tech. It's really quite. We were there at Christmas, and it was just so frightening, actually, that their social breakdown as a direct result of just massive wealth. But I was talking to him about the class system. What is there a class system? Can you feel that class system? I can certainly hear. I'm still bumping into people I work with, even who have been in. Their parents went to university, and they kind of have that sort of sense of historic intellectual privilege, if not financial privilege. And so you still bump into that, and you kind of realize, that's not quite the same route that I took. And then, but then in America, it is just about wealth. If you've got money, you're made. That actually it's not so much class. And I think actually, one thing I think is good is that they are navigating through that quite well. They seem to have some kind of proprioception for the sort of social topology in a weirdly distributed privilege.
This will make the difference for them, and be capable to serve this kind of society.
To be able to reflect on it, I think, definitely.
It is not easy. Yeah. So
I'm probably taking too much credit for that.
Well, they start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Let's just make a point, and then there you go. Add from that. So, and how you think now that the grandson, how your role will, which kind of role play? Of course, the fact you are far away, they're living abroad. How you see all this new chapter?
That is quite, it is quite, there's actually just a meta internal link to another podcast. There's a great Adam Buxton podcast where he's talking to Ewan McGregor. No, not Ewan McGregor. Bloody hell, I forgot his name now. Sci-fi writer. I'll have to edit this out and put him in. I'll check it now. And it's he talks about being old and what it's like to kind of discover a kind of complete passion and love for something that you didn't really expect, which is suddenly you got a grandchild there, and that is it talks about it really nicely, that sudden surprise of having this complete, it's completely disconnected, what is the genetic connection, or it is only like a genetic connection that you have with this new thing that turns up on your doorstep. And it's wonderful. That is really nice, and I think there is a sense that you're living not hopefully not overcompensating for all the cock-ups you made with your own kids, but there's a sense that there is some kind of legitimacy in feeling quite so loving to something which is once removed from you. So yeah, that is quite nice, and I think it is definitely something that having a grandchild is a certain weird privilege, I think. Yeah.
I assume. I can honestly. I assume.
Yeah, it's Ian McEwan talking about being old with his grandchild, and you're gonna go, Christ, that means I'm old as well. I've got a grandchild. We had our kids really young. I think we were in our 23 or it was that we got married at 24, 26 maybe. We had the first one, so it's and we were slightly out of sync with other parents, I think, at that age. I was still at college, and we got married, and then we had kids virtually straight afterwards, and everyone else had been in college with on my postgraduate didn't have kids for another 10 years or something. So that was quite that has been a slightly weird missing synchronization as they've grown up, is that their parents were older, or their friends' parents were older, I think, than we were. So that kind of desynchronization was quite peculiar when they go right the way through. But then suddenly when you get really old, everybody's the same age. Policemen, they're so young these days.
See, that's interesting because nowadays, so even you say your kids are around 30, nowadays I have many friends that started with the first kids in the 40. So, as you say, you're still lucky to have grandson in your young age. So that's a good thing. It's a very good thing. So
it is. I don't know. I've got a friend actually who's the same age as me, which is 60 now, and he's got some very young kids. They're like 5 or something. And I just think, how the hell do you pick them up? I mean, my knees are just going, and my back goes, and I guess it's needs must, but it is quite nice not having to deal with that. I don't know how, as a parent, when they're young, you actually cope, because I don't know if you remember. I mean, one of the things I remember before kids was thinking, well, we have all this time in our life, we can do with this, we can do that. Suddenly you have kids and it just it becomes everything, no sleep, just 24/7 all the time. It just completely absorbs your peripheral vision about everything. And then of course when they leave, that's also a shock when they go to university and stuff. That sort of empty nest syndrome thing is a real shock, and it takes you a long time to just think, wow, it's just us now. They've gone. Tethered maybe, but they're still not there so much. And then trying to reinvent your life after kids is quite a peculiar, another parallel existence, I think. Having a grandchild,
is another universe.
Well, it's that weird sandwich. There's that weird sandwich where your kid, your parents suddenly become old and infirm, and I think we're living through that. My parents, luckily, are very, very robust. Touch wood. But you're becoming more aware of them getting older, and then so now we're being probably as annoying to our kids as they were to us when we were at university, and it's things like that. So you become aware of these various strata of life as you move through it. And I think things when you're young, you just don't think of that at all, but now you kind of look back at your parents and then your kids and then their kids, and you can see these layers, and you kind of want to say, oh, don't do it like we did, and you don't want to do that either, and things like that. It's like
that's I assume because now you have much more experience, and then you at a certain point you look back and say, I passed through those things. So of course I'm sure you're about to say something, and sometimes you say, let them do it by themselves.
Luckily dementia kicks in and you forget everything, so that's where I think we're sitting around.
Well, thanks for this picture. I think it is a picture sort of with a timeline back and forth. Seems in a different, not just time zone. It's a sort of multi-universe, as even a Marvel picture nowadays. So we have several universes where you are young, and then you move 30 degrees and suddenly you have a grandchild. So you see your life, how life is, or what can be, because you met maybe somebody on the street you were working together 20 years ago, but different path.
That's absolutely right. I think that, maybe it's the kind of archaeology that you look back on and you just see them enacting those roles in completely different spheres, different jobs, different communities, etc. But you can still see those points in people's lives where like moving house, for instance, which is always traumatic. We haven't moved house for 20 years now, and I just don't want to move house because it's so traumatic. But you can see them going through jumping those same hurdles, and I guess because you've forgotten what it's like, it's also actually not that easy to to give advice other than about plumbing and roofs and stuff, but actually the living of it is something you can't, I think, give that much advice about, because the trauma of it was so extreme when you did it that you've instantly forgotten what it was like to do that thing. But that kind of flotsam and jetsam that hangs around from those kind of lifetime experiences, it just kind of brings them back to the surface again, I guess.
Well, I cannot add any more word, because so I really love how you picture the overall. So there is so much to learn. It seems more or less it's a never-ending learning process. Now it's a life of learning and learning again, and then once things are done, you need to learn somehow new skill or upskill again, because you feel outdated. So, and say, oh my God, I need to look for an update here to how I can communicate with new generation now, so they don't look the same as me, from language to tools.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the interesting things about, living with technology, is that you've only got like a maximum 6 months life expectancy with any piece of software, and I think that continually makes you consider the next upgrade, and applying that to living, it's probably a useful model, because you just don't want to get obsolete.
Exactly. Probably is the only things we can follow nowadays, not to be on the mood, on the right page, let's say.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mike.
Okay.
I love this quick chat. I hope you enjoy as well. So thank you for telling us a bit of you and your family. So very charming, this art family that through technology live in the metaverse.
It's true. Yeah. Thank you very much, Thomas.
Thank you for sharing with us.
It was very interesting. A pleasure.
Thank
Enjoy.
you. Thanks.
Hi, thanks for listening, the Fatherly Edition. If you like what you've been hearing, please follow Tommaso Maggio on LinkedIn or subscribe to the Fatherly Edition podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you gain your podcasts.